This week, I'm experimenting with cam levers. When I built this router table about 20 years ago or so, I used some casters that I had, and they're not locking casters. So, in order to keep it from rolling, I've got to prop up one end with a board. So my experiment is to see if I can make some cam lever locks to work kind of like this mobile base here. It's important to note that I don't have any plans for this. It's just something that I've kind of been thinking about for a while, and I'm just gonna have a go at it. I'm going to start by setting up my crosscut sled and cutting down some scrap material that I have. Got some old pieces of Baltic birch plywood that I'm going to use for this. I'll raise my saw blade up just high enough so that the gullet is even with the top of the material that I'm trying to cut. I'll cut a couple pieces that I'll use as the base for the cam locks. The bases will attach to the table. And then I will cut a few more pieces that will make the boxes that will hold the lever locks. That should give me enough pieces to get started. Since I don't have a plywood blade in my table saw and getting a really fine cut, I'm going to use the sanding mouse to knock off any of the splinters that end up coming off the plywood. Next, I'll screw these pieces together to make a U-shaped box with a hole in the middle. The hole in the middle will hold the piston block. The piston block is what will raise the wheel off the ground and keep it from rolling. I'll use this quick clamp to hold everything together until I can get some screws in it. Otherwise, the pieces will start to spin, and then nothing will line up. Here I'm laying out the levers. I can get the two pieces out of this one board. I'm tracing around the biggest Forstner bit that I have for the large end of the lever. Then I will get a smaller drill bit and trace around it for the other end. Once I have my circles drawn, then I'll use the straight edge from my square and draw a line between the two circles. And then I'll repeat the process for the second lever. Using my crosscut sled, I will rip this one piece off the end so that I can use it again later. And then I will cut out the two pieces on the bandsaw. As long as I can stay as close to the line as possible and not waver too much, then I shouldn't need to sand these hardly at all. I'm fastening the base on the U-block, then I can lay out for the hole for the cam lever. When trying to position the hole for the cam lever, it's important not to put it in the center. Putting the hole in the center will not give any rise to the piston block whenever it's actuated. I'm looking to get about 1/4 to 3/8 inch rise out of this lever. So I need to make sure that the hole in the lever in the up position is 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch more than the hole from the edge of the lever when it's in the down position. With all my holes marked, then I'll take the U-blocks and the cam levers over to the drill press. I'll start by drilling the holes in the U-blocks first. I've got spacer blocks on the back side of each one of these pieces of plywood, inside the U-block and on the back side, to keep this drill bit from blowing it out. To make sure that I get consistent holes with the cam levers, I've taped them both together with painter's tape, and then I'm going to drill them both at the same time. Now to see how it fits. It's a little tight, but that is by design. Getting the holes to line up is kind of tricky. And that's where the point of a Phillips head screwdriver comes in handy. The pointed tip can help to align these holes, along with a little brute force and ignorance. Using a 1/4 bolt, 2.5 inches long, a couple of washers, and a nylon lock nut, I'll fasten this all together. I'm using the nylon lock nut so that it doesn't back out over time. With the motion of the lever over time, it would eventually loosen a regular nut and it would fall off. And my luck, I'd lose it, so I'll just start with the nylon lock nut. And voila, the first look of my experiment assembled. I think this just might work. I'm using this V-block along with the fence on my drill press and a couple of lockdown clamps so that I can set this block once and drill all 8 holes without having to change my setup and not having to measure each time. Now with my socket and a wrench, I'll tighten these things down once and for all. It's now time to ditch the chalk block. With my router table turned up on end, I'll drill 1 hole to start the first block. Then I will use my drill to mark the others. With the others marked, then I'll drill the holes all the way through. Then I can go back through and fasten all the bolts. I thought I had moved the base far enough over so it wouldn't interfere with the wheel. But as you can see, I need to apply a little percussive persuasion to make this thing work. With all the holes lined up, it's time to add washers and nuts. I'm using carriage bolts, so I don't need a wrench on the back side. I just need to tighten each one of these enough so that the shoulders of the carriage bolt draw into the particle board. Now time to measure for the piston block. I'm using a board long enough to touch both wheels, that way I can make sure the board is on the same plane as what the floor will be. Then I'm using a sample block to measure the distance to the floor, the would-be floor. And here I'll cut that measuring block to length. I'm using that measuring block to mark and cut some scrap oak that I have milled to fit the piston block holes. I'm still a little undecided how I'll hold the piston blocks and the U-blocks. But for now, I'm just going to pry this table up, stick the blocks in there, and try it out. That seems like it's going to work. Now, it's got a little wobble, so I think if I were to do this design again, I'd make those U-blocks longer so that I'd have more support for the piston blocks. But that should do for now. Since this is a piece of shop furniture, it's more about how it works than how it looks. If you got any thoughts on how I can make my little experiment better, let me know in the comments section. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching.